From across time and space and throughout the multiverse, listen as two generations of comic book readers come together to discuss a single character or event that shaped pop culture as we know it. Let Your Geek Side Show presents Then and Now with Susan and Kitty. Hey everyone, this is Susan.
And this is Kitty.
We are coming to you from the Sideshow Studio in Southern California. 10 points to Ravenclaw for this deep dive into the wizarding world. That's right. Today we turn to page 394 and sip a hot butterbeer as we talk all things Harry Potter. So hop on your Nimbus 2001 and calmly put your name into the Goblet of Fire because this is the wizarding world then and now. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh my goodness. All right. So
shout out to House Ravenclaw
yes.
because Ravenclaw represent here.
This podcast is brought to you by House Ravenclaw.
We're coming to you live from the observatory tower. But that's the thing about Harry Potter and the wizarding world, which is now what it's being called, is it has existed since, 1996, 97?
Something like that.
I open at the close, something, because it's the first book came out the year of the Battle of Hogwarts.
Right.
So it does not make it 98.
Anyways.
Semantics. The point is it's existed for like 21 years. It's old enough to drink, and we're young enough to still remember, yeah, sure.
A time
without it.
Yeah. I was going to say, historically, we are very bad at remembering dates for this podcast.
We really are. We research a lot, but apparently not dates.
Not numbers. Numbers are hooey.
Numbers are scary. What do those mean?
When you know magic, you don't need numbers. We did also touch briefly on Harry Potter as a franchise and the cultural impact in our Top Fictional Schools podcast for the Geek Culture Countdown. Mm-hmm. But now we're going to take a little bit more time to kind of just really track the growth of the franchise as a whole.
Because the anniversary of the Battle of Hogwarts is May 2nd. And these are things that I know because it's funny because a friend of mine one time was like he just did a thing with Harry Potter where he just is like, Harry Potter fans are a little bit different than all the other fans. And I was like, really? Why is that? He's like, because you all think that it's real. He's like, you all think that you went to Hogwarts and that you graduated.
I'm not going to lie. In elementary school, I had my mom make me and my friends fake acceptance letters because she was the only adult I knew that could sign her name really nicely.
I gave acceptance letters to a bunch of people here my first year at Sideshow. That was like my Christmas present to most of the Harry Potter fans.
That's cute.
So they got they were ornaments too. So that's what it was.
Aw. All right. So what we're saying is like we're big Harry Potter nerds here. And so we've watched the fandom. We've watched like the fandom rise and then kind of like not fall, but go to
plateau.
Yeah, plateau, go to sleep for a little while. Mm-hmm. And then there's been a resurgence in different ways that have evolved beyond the nature of the books. But oh my gosh. I mean, one of my fondest memories of, first of all, of a Borders bookstore, if you remember those humble little establishments, going to Borders bookstore and they had a promotion for the Half-Blood Prince where you could get a sticker or there were 2 stickers and you had to tell the bookseller when you went and pre-ordered the book, because that was a thing people did.
Oh yeah, no, I pre-ordered all of the books from Goblet of Fire on.
You could tell. I think we got the last one from Amazon, but most of the other ones I went and pre-ordered. But you could tell the bookseller as you were pre-ordering what you thought of Snape. And the 2 stickers were Snape is a bad man or I trust Snape. And I said, I walked right up there and I was like, Snape is a bad man and that's the sticker that I want. And the guy was like, are you sure? Like, you're not going to like change your mind? And I was like, nope. And he's like, well, I'm going to give you both stickers just in case. I'm like, Snape is a bad man. Just give me my sticker.
Like, I don't want you to have, like, I already made my choice.
Yeah, I already made my choice.
So
but like
the Barnes & Noble pre-orders, you got a really cool rubber band without like a rubber band like bracelet.
Yeah, those rubber band bracelets.
Those rubber band bracelets that had like owl post on it and Hedwig. And then for Deathly Hallows, it had the 3 stars. For Half-Blood Prince, it had Hedwig. And I have both of those from Barnes & Noble still in my collection.
Oh, my goodness.
So, anyway.
So that's a perfect place to start. When we rewind to an era of, first of all, some bookstores were still standing. Mm-hmm. And second of all, these book releases were events.
Hey, you know how like now you go to the movies at like 6 o'clock the night before and like this is when we were lining up for the midnight release of the Harry Potter book. And for Goblet of Fire, Order of the Phoenix, Half-Blood Prince, and Deathly Hallows, I not only got my book right at midnight, but I stayed up all night reading it.
Ooh.
So I stayed up because I didn't want anybody to tell me anything about the book. This was right around the time that the internet was kind of coming into its own. I remember that someone posted on my MySpace page spoilers for Deathly Hallows, and I was so mad. I had already read the book by the time they were posted, but I was so mad that someone would do that. Rude.
I mean,
now
and we fast forwarded a little bit to one of the point at which one of the more prominent internet memes is, and I'm sorry, there's gonna be spoilers in this podcast, but one of the most prominent internet memes is Snape killed Dumbledore.
Yeah.
And the reveal of Snape killed Dumbledore. That's an internet meme now.
I cried so hard when that happened.
Yeah.
I remember I was reading it at the golf course I worked at in college. And I was sitting at the counter crying.
So the Harry Potter books, oh my gosh, from humble beginnings of the Philosopher's Stone, the Sorcerer's Stone in America, it's just, did anyone realize how big that was? Because now
I have no idea if anybody realized that. I just know that I was in the hospital with a really bad flu, needs to be on an IV dehydrated drip type situation, and my mom just gave me the first 3. And I just sat in that hospital bed and read all 3. In fact, sometimes if it weren't for the movies, I have a really hard time distinguishing what happened in which of the first 3 books, because they're also a little bit shorter than the ones that came later. But those first 3, I think of them as one big book because I read them seriously in a row, boom, boom, boom.
That was the only book that has ever been an event in my family where everyone except for my brother read it. My brother tried. His bookmark is still in the first book, about 20 pages in. It wasn't his scene, but he appreciates it. But it was me, my dad, and my mom. And
did he watch the movies?
I think so.
Because my brother never really got into the books, but he really dug the movies.
I think my brother watched each of them at least once.
Yeah.
And as a child, I was extremely furious that my parents knew how to read faster than me, and so it was a race to finish.
I always finished first in my family.
I didn't, but
yeah.
But it was a family affair, and then me and my friends on the schoolyard were that was our first pseudo book club kind of deal.
And you and your friends sorted yourselves and each other. At least that's what I mean. I was in college. These actually came out in junior high school, and college for me. Because, I know. This is why we do that in Now, Kitty.
I was
we do that in Now, Kitty, because I'm a little bit older than you.
3rd grade recess, we played Harry Potter on the schoolyard.
Right. So, I'm saying, I'm a little bit older than you. That's why we do the Then and Now podcast. The whole thing is generations. There's the good 11 years between the two of us.
Yes.
So, like I said, in junior high school, and college... that's when the majority of my Harry Potter readings happened. And actually Deathly Hallows came out I think the year after I graduated college. But I remember being so upset that Deathly Hallows was going to be the last book because I just really wanted more. And little did I know that not only was I going to get more,
you're going to get more movies, you're going to get more of everything. More. I mean, we even had there were those they called them the Hogwarts library books. Those those cute little 50 pages Quidditch through the ages.
Franchise.
Yeah, and Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And now that is a 5-film or will be 5-film movie franchise.
I love that because that was something my mom and I talked about. Where my mom and I were how are they going to make that tiny little book into 5 movies?
They're going to run out of beasts by the 2nd film.
Yeah.
No, and then we got Tales of Beetle the Bard, and that was really when it was all right, the fandom is hungry for more. Mm-hmm. People were launching LeakyCon, which is the Harry Potter convention.
And the Harry Potter convention this year is the 10th anniversary of it.
Aww.
So it's existed for 10 years. So now they're doing 2 this year. One's in Dallas where it has landed because it used to be all over, but then they kind of landed in Dallas for the past few years. But they're going back and doing another one in Boston where the first LeakyCon was.
It blows my mind because this is really one of those. I know there's other ones obviously Star Trek and Star Wars, but this is one of the younger in terms of its own being around fandoms, but it's so huge.
The only one I think that's maybe younger is Game of Thrones because. But it's for an older group of people, obviously.
Yeah.
But Harry Potter, you have fans like there's kind of a question where we're just kind of waiting, like when is the next generation, when are our kids old enough to get into Harry Potter? And like I have a friend who has already gotten his daughter into Harry Potter, like to actually from her birth, her middle name is Hermione. Like it's stuff like that where you just kind of like, where does it start? Well, it starts when you decide that you're magic.
and as we touched upon in the top fictional schools, I mean, like, more so than most other fandoms, like, because you can say, oh, I'm light side, dark side, or like I have this position on the spaceship in Star Trek. I'm sorry, I'm not a Trekkie.
Oh my God.
That sounded real unofficial of me.
It's Starfleet.
Starfleet. Oh.
There we go.
But Hogwarts, you just go, what's your house? Like, what's your house? And now...
And it's almost like an astrology thing. Like, it's a what's your sign. You can tell so much about a person by what house they identify in. And then now we've opened it up. And while I don't particularly identify with, like, my Ilvermorny house, like, I'm such a Ravenclaw. It's ridiculous. And I don't really identify with, like any other sign that's assigned to me, like my moon sign or rising, like any of the astrology stuff, I don't really understand, but I understand what it means to be a Ravenclaw.
It's fun because it's come up. It's these ways for us to identify ourselves in a world of fantasy while also like letting people know our values, even in the context of the magical world.
Right.
Now, you said you were reading these when you were like high school, college. So... God, I hate doing this to myself. But so I get to college, and what do we have as a full-blown, almost international sport?
I'm so jealous of this.
Quidditch. Quidditch has jumped off the pages and become a real sport. So there's an organized league. A lot of it is college students, but also like that just kind of out of college, young adult. And I was on a community team. But there are like officially, like UCLA has like the official school Quidditch team.
Yep.
And there's international leagues, and they have a World Cup that is hosted in like Texas or Florida sometimes. And people come from all over to participate in this. And of course, the first thing people always ask is like, were you really on a broomstick? And it's like, no.
Well, we've made adaptations.
Yeah, we've made adaptations.
But give it time.
But give it time when we get there.
There's already hoverboards.
But it is the most ridiculous sport. And I say that with all the love in my heart because it is... They're trying to make like a major league for it where like that like first couple of rounds of the college students who like went pro with it, like they like take it to something further. But it's a co-ed full contact sport. It's a mixture of dodgeball, rugby, volleyball, shooting hoops, and running around with a PVC pipe between your legs. And it's just like it is
awesome.
To the outside viewer, it doesn't look like any like it just looks like a bunch of people running around hopefully knowing what they're doing, but it's just like it.
But isn't that what most sports are?
I mean that, and
like think about what most sports are,
and
like they don't have to make sense. You just have to know the rules and follow them and have it be competitive.
And it's a sport that attracts, as my teammate said, two types of people: the nerds who love Harry Potter and the jocks who want to wail on nerds. And so everybody wins because it is one of those sports where you're like you have your specific sign assigned. I was a chaser, for the record. That's the point scoring.
Yeah, I would have wanted to be a keeper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the keeper doubles as a chaser. And I'm not going to go into the specifics of the rules.
Well, I didn't know that.
And the snitch is actually like a physical person running around with a softball and a sock. And there's like regulation shorts that the snitch has to wear. And like there's like rules for how long the knot in the tail can be. Like there are rules for this game. And it was a system created out of like love and just sheer fandom and joy. There's an official rule book that comes out constantly updating. Players actually since I left the league, players actually have to wear helmets and mouth guards now because people are getting concussions and stuff.
What's really funny about it is that if you like read Quidditch among the ages, it's not supposed to be a full contact sport.
Yeah, well, you make do with your legs instead of flying. But I mean, that's just one of the ways that things have like completely jumped out. And I mean, there's the Universal Studios park, like land in the Hogwarts, you know what I'm talking about. And then there's like a London studio tour. There's mobile games on your phone.
Yeah.
There's gonna be an AR like Pokemon Go style one where you find
I'm
monsters.
So excited for that.
It's just the way that it's exploded in recent years, and I think the resurgence of all this modern stuff really came from Pottermore, which was that site. And it still updates constantly. It is like the news hub for all updates, content, original stuff that J.K. Rowling wants to expound upon with
There's
like
even a
character
house
bios.
cup on that every year. That's one of my favorite things to participate in. Like if you can get points for your house, and if you like, it's trivia questions. There's different quizzes. You just earn points for your house. You can learn spells. You can take different classes, like potions and stuff.
And this was a resource for fans to get pretty much the most closely canonical answers for questions that they had in terms of their own Hogwarts identity. Like you can have your own choice. Like, I identify this house, but you've got the most official of the quizzes that will sort you.
And just, I'm going to say this right now. My one beef with this quiz is it's very clear throughout the books and the movies that the sorting hat takes your choice into account. It does. It just does. The last question on that quiz should be, where do you think you belong? And not that the sorting hat has to listen. I'm not saying that question can even, like, you can put that question in and not even have it count in the back end.
I think for some, because I know some iterations of the quiz, if you're too close between the two, it'll ask you, but it doesn't give you the choice between all four at once. I'm complaining, but at the same time, I was sorted into Ravenclaw officially on Pottermore. I've actually never not been sorted into Ravenclaw, except for the times that I've wanted to take the test to see if I could be sorted into a different house. And then I was sorted into that particular house because I'm a Ravenclaw. So you know how to manipulate it.
So that's what I do.
Well, and then fans can figure out their Patronus and their wand. And so it's all these things that I think one of the reasons why a lot of this still persists and that identification with the house and stuff is so important and integral to the sustaining of the fandom. It just comes from this need to belong, and the fandom does offer so many options. And even going back to those book releases, the fact that you could go to a party at a public venue for a book to come out.
Yeah.
Like, gosh,
I wish waited in line.
I wish we still did that. Like,
I dressed up as Tonks.
I dressed up as Luna Lovegood. I made the whole lion head and everything. And it's just,
my God.
It was just such a big deal. So Pottermore was kind of that first, like, turn the faucet back on, here we come. Like, like Harry Potter's back, baby.
And something that I love about Pottermore and the Wizarding world in general is the different types of identifiers. Like, I'm a Ravenclaw, but I also have a 13.5-inch unwielding black walnut wand with a phoenix feather core. Like, so, and then what Pottermore,
I don't remember my wand.
And what Pottermore does is it breaks down what that means, like what it means to have a phoenix feather core when your wand chooses you, what it means to be black walnut, what it means to have like an unyielding wand. Like, all of that plays into your identity as a wizard. And so what it actually does is create like I'm sure there's someone out there who has the exact same stats as me. Like, there are 6 billion people in the world. The odds are, if they all took the Pottermore quizzes in everything, someone has an identical identification to me, but it feels like I'm the only one. So, like, while you and I are both Ravenclaw, there are other things that identify us as kind of more individual within that sorting. So that's something that I think the Wizarding world has done so well, is given each individual fan a chance to individually and like all on your own connect to people where you have your person that you are, but like you connect with someone else as exactly who they are. And that's
and those identifying factors help you get to know something about another person, but they also become things you can share.
Right. And like, if I explain to you specifically, like, why it's important that I have a black walnut wand and how it's not one of the original 13 woods that were originally like harvested in order to make wands, like, that's a whole other identifier that connects us in like a different type of way, where you're like, okay, well then this says this about her, and it's astrology.
And
but
so,
like,
while I'm watching
book nerds,
while I'm watching Susan do this deep dive, there comes the other side, I think, of the oh my God, I was gonna say the galleon coin. The other side of that is where do we there's certain areas of fandom expansion that people are like, you know what, like, I didn't didn't really need, like, I love the books, I love the movies, I love how they stand. We didn't necessarily need this prequel or this bit of information. And so it becomes interesting when we do have the introduction of so much new material, and I'm alluding to the Fantastic Beasts franchise on the prequel end, and then also the Cursed Child on Broadway, which is the sequel, kind of takes place 19 years after the conclusion of the books. And both of these do incredibly difficult juggling work. The Fantastic Beasts is showing us a younger version of some of the characters we already know, like Dumbledore and Grindelwald, and we're getting a full view of like Newt Scamander, a character who didn't really get explained much in the series. We just
know that his textbook is integral to the, what are they called? Curriculum, thank you.
The syllabus.
Yeah. Syllabus. Like, what are those?
The wizard syllabus.
I was like, school words of Hogwarts itself. So we get to meet him.
And so Fantastic Beasts has been confirmed as an anticipated 5-film franchise, which is like...
Of which we've only seen 2.
And that is entirely original material that we cannot reference from the books. I mean, you could read that little 50-page thing as much as you want, but you're not going to get any plot details. You're going to get some cool animal profiles. And for me, the first film, like, really, really did reawaken a love of oh my goodness. But upon seeing the second film, I thought, the first film told a story that was complete, and I don't really need to go into the mystique of these other things. As someone who I held a movie marathon for like 6 of my best friends in high school. And we watched all the movies, and I filmed like a clip of each of us saying how we were feeling at the beginning and end of each of the films, and it's just like a descent into Harry Potter madness. And like I've done some insane things for just my love of this franchise.
I have a sorting hat that I let one of our coworkers borrow because his daughter was turning 11 and she wanted nothing more than to be sorted for her 11th birthday, because that's like how deep this fandom goes.
But then we get Crimes of Grindelwald, and I felt like, okay, there's 4 other films in this franchise besides that first one that I loved so much, and they're all going to try to tell a cohesive narrative that dovetails into the beginning of the Harry Potter series. I'm like, I don't need the mystique of that changed for me. But there are some people who like greatly enjoy the demystifying of some of these elements.
You know what I think this is headed, and I think I'm okay with this in general, is there's so much, they're so rich. They're following the footsteps of things like Star Wars and Star Trek, those like ongoing franchises, Doctor Who, that have lasted for what feels like a million years, but really it's like 50 or 60 or 40, is that as a fan, when you have such a rich body of work, you can kind of pick and choose what you like. And
Absolutely.
For me, that's something that's super important with Harry Potter. Like, it's like, for example, I don't necessarily care what my Patronus is, because I already know that deep down in my heart, my Patronus is my cat. Like, if I use an Expecto Patronum spell, my cat's coming out of that wand. Like, I don't need any other quiz. And by the way, the quiz will not tell you your own cat. Like, I don't even remember what it gave me, because I was just like, no.
Like a dolphin, I think.
I think it gave me some sort of horse, which is also like very not me. But the thing is that I didn't get angry at like the quiz, or I didn't get angry at Pottermore or the creators or anything like that.
Right.
I was just like, you know what? I know. And so for you with Crimes of Grindelwald, you were, I mean, we saw it together.
Yeah.
So I know that you were able to walk away and be like, you know what? That wasn't a story that I needed. But like, I still love the first Fantastic Beasts.
And honestly, I'll probably see the rest of them, because I need to know how. Because maybe I'll feel differently once the cohesive story is there. But it is difficult to retrofit something, especially when you can start to see where it's showing seams of like, oh, this clearly wasn't originally in the plans. But you're right. It is such an expansive universe that you can take and pick and choose what you want. I mean, I've not read or seen The Cursed Child. I have one friend who I love so dearly. She's also a Ravenclaw, and it is her favorite show on Broadway right now. She's seen it about 6 times, and she loves that story. And for me, it's like it's an explanation I don't feel that I need, because I have what I need from the Potter franchise.
I read The Cursed Child. I was not a fan of The Cursed Child. But even something that I'm not, like, I don't ever really have a desire to see it. I definitely don't have any sort of like inclination to want to add that into my Harry Potter fandom. However, the one thing that I did really enjoy about it, and this is exactly what I'm talking about with like there are good things and pieces of fandoms, like pieces that you can take from any fandom, is that it really did show because it has an adult Harry in it. Cursed Child does a really good job of showing how much trauma child Harry still carried with him as an adult.
And that is something that I feel like, especially as the movies took more prominence, it became played off as like people were just like, oh yeah, he's just like really angry all the time. We get to the Order of the Phoenix and it's just teenage rebellion Harry. But it's like, do you think about how much these children went through?
Yeah,
in
Harry
their schooling
was supposed
years?
to be 15. Like think about having to deal with a mentally abusive teacher at 15.
Yeah, think about your own life at 15 and how much you hated the world and like how much Nirvana you listened to
and then think about having detention at 15, which I did, and then having detention scar you for life, literally.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think, especially when we jump to different adaptations, some of that is lost. But some people really like Order of the Phoenix is one of my favorite books. Like,
I do not. Okay, so
it's my least favorite movie adaptation. But
that's so funny. It's my least favorite book and my favorite movie adaptation.
Really?
I love that movie. It's my favorite of all the movies.
Well, I think that's just such a perfect example of the take it or leave it.
Right.
It means different things to everybody, and they come to Hogwarts and get what they need out of that.
Yeah.
But it is so interesting watching the world grow and seeing which stories you go, hey, that was really great that was told, or like this bit of information enriched my understanding of the fandom, and then other places where you go, okay, this is just to try to keep the pulse alive, but did we need it? But some people said yes. Some people did need that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something really bizarre and beautiful about this franchise.
Oh, for sure.
And
so though I do have one question before we end this podcast. So no, it's a great question. I mean, we both will think it's a great question. Those of you who are out in the listening universe might not. So we've had main characters who are Gryffindor. Mm-hmm. We've had main characters who are Slytherin. We've had main characters who are Hufflepuff now. When are we getting our Ravenclaw? I really want to know that. And while Luna and Cho, we've gotten a couple.
I was going to say, and we probably both like Order of the Phoenix for different reasons because of Luna, especially.
Oh yeah, I love Luna. We both love Luna. She's one of the first characters that we both like. Really...
That for me because also historically, as we read through the books and we focused so much on Harry's journey, the other houses besides. Gryffindor and Slytherin were obviously the number 1 and 2 houses,
right.
But every house that wasn't Gryffindor was completely underserved in its representation until we got to Pottermore and we did get those explanations.
And then, we have Cedric Diggory being a Hufflepuff, but to be honest, Cedric Diggory isn't like the normal Hufflepuff.
Right.
Newt Scamander is a much closer to what you would think of as a traditional Hufflepuff. However, it is great that we see two sides to each of these characters. Like you see the fact that like Gryffindor contains people like Harry Potter, Albus Dumbledore, but also
Peter Pettigrew.
Peter Pettigrew came from Gryffindor.
And you've got Luna Lovegood and Cho Chang, incredibly brilliant in their own way students. Mm-hmm. And then Gilderoy Lockhart is a Ravenclaw
who lies his entire life.
But he was so smart about it.
He was so smart about lying. And it's so cool that the expansion of Harry Potter and the world shows us that it's almost like putting labels on people doesn't matter.
Right.
Because those people are individuals regardless of their label.
Yeah.
So you can say this person's a Ravenclaw, but does that really make them clever and witty? Well, I mean, yeah, but how they use
but it's also, it also shows
it matters.
It's nuanced because cleverness, you could be book smart, you could be really street smart, you can be creative, you could be... So there's people go, oh, it's the nerds. It's the extremely bookish. You could be so smart that you're like, I'm bored by all of this and I'm not doing my homework because I know what I'm doing. But like, it's the stymied by like, I'm not going to do my homework because I'm already too smart for this. Or like I'm brave and chivalrous, or I am foolhardy and running headfirst into danger kind of version of Gryffindor.
And then when you see people are like Slytherins are the bad guys. No, they aren't. They're the ambitious people. I always say if you want something done, you give it to a Slytherin because like they're the people who are going to get it done quickly. Like Ravenclaws will overanalyze it. Hufflepuffs will probably be like, I'm having fun right now. I'll get to that later. Gryffindors are like, what is this thing? And like turn it into like a quest. And then a Slytherin's like, yeah, it's already done. It's been done for 5 years. But what I'm saying is we've seen so many sides of so many different houses, but I really do want some sort of movie with a prominent Ravenclaw as like the protagonist character that we follow.
That would be pretty fun.
So
yeah, and it's just all these different ways we bring this fictional world into our real world, the least of which being getting totally beat up on a soccer field by other. Oh my gosh. Like, I joke that like the other people in Quidditch were the jocks who wanted to wail on nerds, but like there was a really cool rule because of the fact that it's a co-ed sport. Quidditch has a rule of 2 to 5, and so you have to have 2 players on the field at all times who are not the majority gender, and it allows for a lot of different gender identity representations as well. So we had a formation where we ran 3 guys who were 6'4", and then me and another girl, and then or was it 5 players on the field? I don't remember. It was like 5 or 6 or 7 players, but whatever it was like we ran a formation of 3 6'4" dudes. And then like me and another girl because like we had to be there.
Yeah.
But it was like also cool because it's like, okay, we've got the jocks on our side to like beat up the other nerds for us.
Yeah. And that's, I mean,
in not so simple
those are
terms.
the Victor Crumbs and the Cedric Diggories of the world.
Yes. But yeah, the way that people have adapted, and we've got the theme parks and everything, just the ways that we bring this magical world a little closer because it shows us parts of ourselves that we want to represent to the world and also be included therein.
So then the real question is, are we wrong to think that this is real? The Wizarding World fandom has been through a lot of evolution since it showed up in 1997. From the books to the movies and Pottermore to the parks, there has always been something new and exciting coming from the mind of J.K. Rowling. We hope you enjoyed listening as we traveled through Portkeys, used a bit of flu powder, but definitely did not apparate inside the walls of Hogwarts. If there is a character or pop culture event you would like to hear us cover on this podcast, please send suggestions to podcasts@geeksideshow.com. And remember, Hogwarts will always be there to welcome you home. This has been the Wizarding World, then and now. Do you enjoy listening to Then and Now? We are proud to bring you pop culture content completely ad-free, but that doesn't mean we don't need your support to help us keep going. Please take a moment to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting platform and help spread the word about our podcast. We welcome fan feedback. Email us at podcasts@sideshow.com with your thoughts and suggestions for how we can make our shows even better. Please tune in for our other pop culture podcasts. See if your fan favorites make the cut in the Geek Culture Countdown, a bi-weekly podcast featuring pop culture top 10 lists. Hear exclusive interviews with celebrities and pop culture industry leaders as they let their geek side show in Look Who Showed Up. Then get all the latest pop culture news with our daily briefing, a 2-minute breakdown of the biggest geek headlines perfect for your Alexa or Google News briefings. We wouldn't exist without your continued support. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to let your geek side show.